بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته Alhamdulillah, we find ourselves close to the another great season in Islam. We just left the month of Ramadan about a month ago, and if I'm not the only one, we feel a decrease in spirituality. And it's normal, as I've mentioned before. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us these seasons to rejuvenate, to enliven our spirits. And so after one season, which was Ramadan, and we had the prep for Ramadan also, so that's a whole 3 months or so. We had a little bit of the next month, the 6 days of fasting, inshallah, we did that. And we had some maintenance, we could say, of our spirits. We have another season coming up. And that is the season of Hajj. Which is right after Shawwal, you have the Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah. Hajj takes place in Dhul Hijjah. We're currently in Dhul Qa'dah, in the beginning of Dhul Qa'dah. So Dhul Qa'dah is also a very highly respected month, and we are preparing for the season of Hajj. Now, we may be thinking that, I'm not going for Hajj this year, so, it doesn't really apply to me. This spiritual month of Hajj, this Hajj journey, I'm not going for Hajj, so it doesn't really apply. But that isn't necessarily correct. As we know, Rasulullah ﷺ tells us that the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah are the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in terms of when Allah wants to be worshipped on. Scholars even talk about, there's a difference of opinion. Is the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah the most beloved to Allah, or the last 10 nights of Ramadan? So some scholars, they try to reconcile, and they say the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah and the last 10 nights of Ramadan. So there's no contradiction. But we find that there are plenty of hadith such that you cannot deny this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves being worshipped in the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. This is not limited to those who go for Hajj. It's all of us as well. So every single Muslim needs to work hard in the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. This is often forgotten, often not really practiced on, but it's just as important, if not more, than the first 20 days of Ramadan. We have a difference of opinion regarding the last 10 nights of Ramadan. These are extremely important. Some say equating the last 10 nights of Ramadan. And how unfortunate is it that we just, pass these days by and not really take the value from it. So the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. Obviously, the 10th of Dhul Hijjah is Eid. So we have another Eid coming up. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the system very beautifully. He gives us holidays. We have two holidays. Eid al-Fitr, Eid al-Adha. These are the two holidays of Islam that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself talked about. These are our holidays. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us this concession. Celebrate, enjoy, eat. Right? Eid al-Fitr, Fitr means not fasting, the opposite of fasting. So Allah commands us to eat. Adha means the sacrifice. And so those of us who are going to sacrifice, we have to partake of that sacrifice, so food that we're going to have. So it's also called the Ayyamul Diyafa, the days of Allah hosting us. We are the guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on those days. So the system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is He gives us holidays, but not before He tests us. Not before we prove it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to prove it to Allah before the holidays. That is why right before Eid al-Fitr, that is the highest level of exertion that we go through in terms of ibadah. Standing at night, fasting every single day, right before the Eid al-Fitr. Then we have a celebration, and then things calm down. The same thing can be said about Eid al-Adha. It's not that we just live a normal life, and then the next day is Eid, and then we just go back. There's a progression. Allah wants us to exert ourselves on that Eid as well. And that exertion starts from now. So it's a spiritual rejuvenation again. So if you think about it, a Muslim is going through half a year of spiritual rejuvenation. The rest of the year, which is going to be after that Eid, now you have maintenance. The rest of the year is maintenance. But this is the time period, right before 2 months before Ramadan, including Ramadan. Then we have a little break. And now again, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah are times of exertion again. And these are sacred months. And so these few months, if we do it right, the rest of the year, not only will it be maintenance, inshallah, will progress as well. So I want to start talking about Hajj, inshallah, the virtues of Hajj. I know many of us are not going to go, but inshallah, if we learn about these virtues, if we learn about what Hajj is about, what we get from Hajj, we can start planning for next year. Planning for Hajj takes a while. It's not that, I'm just, even if you're inspired by these ahadith right now, you probably won't be able to go right now, just because of the system that is in place. But inshallah, for next year, you'll be able to. And so that's my hope, inshallah. Allah gives me tawfiq to go for the Hajj as well as you. And throughout the year, inshallah, you have the opportunity to go for Umrah. So these are huge, beneficial things in Islam and special ibadahs that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. For those who have the capability of doing it, inshallah, they will have this huge fortune. In one narration, which is narrated by Abdullah bin Amr radiyallahu anhuma, he says, لما أهبط الله آدم عليه السلام من الجنة قال إني مهبط معك بيتا. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Adam alayhi salam from the heavens, Allah sent Adam alayhi salam to earth, our father, He told Adam alayhi salam, with you I'm going to send a house. I'm going to send a house with you. يطاف حوله كما يطاف حول عرشي. Just as the angels do tawaf around my arsh, the throne of Allah, people will do tawaf around this house. Allah is sending with Adam, the first human being. وَيُصَلَّى عِنْدَهُ كَمَا يُصَلَّى عِنْدَ عَرْشِي. And people will perform salah around this house just like the angels perform salah around my arsh. The arsh of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's angels that are doing tawaf around it. There are angels that are worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So many that in some narrations it says that when one angel performs salah and does tawaf, he will never get that opportunity again. There's so many that keep on doing this on a daily basis. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling Adam alayhi salam, I'm going to send with you a house. People are going to do tawaf around it. They're going to circumambulate around it, walk around it, just like angels do for my arsh. People are going to pray towards this house, just like angels pray towards the arsh. فَلَمَّا كَانَ زَمَنُ الطُّوفَانِ رُفِعَ. So the hadith says, when it was the time of the tufan is the flood of Nuh alayhi salam. This destroyed everything practically that was on the earth. The Kaaba, or the house, this is the house that Allah sent, is the Kaaba Sharif. Allah lifted it. Allah rescued the Kaaba. He didn't let the Kaaba get destroyed. So the Kaaba was gone. وَكَانَ الْأَنْبِيَاء يَحُجُّونَهُ. After the Tufan of Nuh alayhi salam, that same area which the Kaaba was in, it remained. The area was there, but the Kaaba was taken away. So now there's no Kaaba, but that area is sacred. So it's not the Kaaba that we worship. We should not think that we worship the Kaaba. We worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's Allah's command that we face one unifying direction. The Kaaba is a symbol. It's nothing divine at all. It is a symbol of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's unity that He creates us with. So even if the Kaaba is not physically there, we still have to face that direction. The Kaaba is a symbol. And of course it's very musharraf, very noble, because Allah has granted it that nobility. So after the flood of Nuh alayhi salam, the Kaaba was lifted. The prophets would still go to that place and do Hajj. In one hadith, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that he had a vision where he saw Musa alayhi salam and the other prophets going and doing Hajj around the area of the Kaaba. And of course in Musa alayhi salam's time, the Kaaba was there because of Ibrahim alayhi salam. But before Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Kaaba was gone. So you have the duration of time between Nuh alayhi salam and Ibrahim alayhi salam, there's no Kaaba. Before Nuh alayhi salam, from Adam alayhi salam to Nuh alayhi salam, there is the Kaaba. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, or Abdullah bin Amr, he narrates, وَلَا يَعْلَمُونَ مَكَانَهُ. The prophets before Ibrahim alayhi salam, after Nuh alayhi salam, did not know where exactly the Kaaba goes. They knew the basic location. They would do Hajj around that area. فَبَوَّأَهُ لِإِبْرَاهِيمَ عَلَيْهِ الصَّلَاةُ وَالسَّلَامُ فَبَنَاهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded Ibrahim alayhi salam to reinstate the building of the Kaaba. So the nobility of that area was already there. But Ibrahim alayhi salam built the building again. And so Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam or Abdullah ibn Amr, he says in this narration, فَتَمَتَّعُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Take as much benefit from this as you can. It's a huge ni'mah. Allah has given us, we have the Bayt, we have the Kaaba. Previous prophets, some of them did not have the Kaaba. They would still have to go to that location. So we're lucky in the sense that we have a focal point, we have a symbol. If there's one symbol that unifies all Muslims, it's the Kaaba Sharifah. We all face towards this place. When we perform salah, we even face it when we're reciting Quran, all noble things facing that direction. It's the most noble of directions. So he says, take benefit from it. Also, before Yawm al-Qiyamah, this is like really far, like after Dajjal, after Isa alayhi salatu wassalam, after Imam Mahdi, all of these things have, after they have already occurred. So in the future, there will be a person named Zu Sawiqatain. He will be from Abyssinia. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one hadith, he says, avoid the Abyssinians, don't mess with them, because Zu Sawiqatain will come from them and destroy the Kaaba. Person will come, he's going to break the Kaaba in the future. So the Kaaba's at that point, it's not going to be rebuilt ever again. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had another vision. He says, I can see his axe and his spear, and he's taking the Kaaba down bit by bit. And he's going to have a force with him, so no one's going to be able to defend it. So we have the Kaaba right now, so he says, تَمَتَّعُوا مِنْهُ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Take benefit from this beautiful building that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us from the time of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wassalam. So this is where we go for the Hajj. This is where we face every single day in our prayers. In another hadith, Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-umrah ila al-umrah kafaratun lima bainahuma, wal hajj al-mabrur laysa lahu jazaa'un illa al-jannah." If you do an umrah, from that time till you do the umrah again. So sometimes a person goes for umrah, maybe 10 years later they go to umrah again. When you redo an umrah, all of the sins in between, they get forgiven. So that's why it's really good to continuously go, not just do umrah once. Every time you redo a umrah, meaning you've already done one umrah, you go for another, then every sin in between is forgiven. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam also says, if anyone does a hajj mabrur, an accepted hajj mabrur, an accepted hajj, there's no reward for an accepted hajj except for Jannah. If you do a hajj properly, the only reward you will get is Jannah itself. There's no other reward. It's not like you're going to get a lesser reward. You get Jannah itself by doing a hajj mabrur. Now notice that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he doesn't say a general hajj. There are ways to do hajj wrong. And inshallah, I'll mention 3 signs that scholars have mentioned of a hajj mabrur at the end of the speech, inshallah. In another narration, Abdullah bin Jarad, he states that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "Hajju fa innal hajja yaghsilu adh-dhunub kama yaghsilu al-ma'u ad-daran." Do hajj, because just like when you take a ghusl, you take a shower, all of the dirt is gone. Hajj will do that to you. It'll purify you. And we see this all the time. People who had no inclination towards Islam throughout their whole life, sometimes they get tawfiq to go for hajj, they come back a changed individual. Everything about them has changed. Maybe they grow a beard, maybe they start wearing different libas. And it's not just the physical, that's just a sign. But the inward aspect has changed. Their character changes. Their inclination towards ibadah and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changes. You see them reading Quran, trying to understand their deen. This is a sign of hajj mabrur. In another narration, Amr bin al-As, some tabi'een came to him when he was passing away. And Amr bin al-As, he was crying. Baka tawilan. He stated to these people, he's dying, he's on his deathbed. Amr bin al-As is a great sahabi. And he says, فَلَمَّا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ الْإِسْلَامِ فِي قَلْبِي أَتَيْتُ النَّبِيَّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made me inclined towards Islam, Amr bin al-As is saying, Amr bin al-As was a general against Islam. He used to fight against Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was a general of the Quraysh. With Khalid bin Walid and all the great generals, he was against Islam. Then after the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, he as well as Khalid bin Walid, they went to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they accepted Islam. So when he came to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's talking about this at his deathbed. He's talking about when he accepted Islam. He goes to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam and he expresses that I want to accept the faith. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, "Ubsut yadak, give me your hand, so I can do bay'ah. So you put your hand in mine, and I will accept your pledge of allegiance, and you will become a Muslim." So Amr ibn al-As, he said he was going to, and then he pulled his hand away from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, "Malak, what happened? You're just about to shake my hand and enter the fold of Islam. You took your hand away." And he said, "Aradtu an ashtarit." Oh Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, like, I believe in you, but I want to make a condition. Once I shake your hand, I'm yours. But before that, I feel like I have some power. I want to make a condition. And so imagine his tawbah. It's a real regret. He's like, all of you are the Nabi of Allah. You are the greatest creation of Allah. I realize that now. Before I used to fight you, I used to be against you. I used to rile up the army of the Quraysh, and I was a general, and Allahu alam how many Sahaba he must have killed. He fought against Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam for many battles. So he says, I want to make a condition. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Tashtarit ma'adha." What is your condition? Tell me. Before you do the bay'ah, what do you want? He says, I want you to ask Allah that I'm forgiven. All of the harm that I've done to Islam. I just want forgiveness. I don't want to enter Islam with all of this guilt in my mind that I was actually against you. I actually fought against you. I want to be forgiven. So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he smiled at him and he said, "Ama alimta ya Amr anna al-Islam yahdimu ma kana qabla?" Oh Amr, didn't you know that this is not special for you? You don't have to make this condition. If you accept Islam, everything is forgiven anyway. It's for everyone that comes to me, shakes my hand, pledges their allegiance. Everything's forgiven anyway. You don't have to make this condition. Didn't you know this? وَأَنَّ الْهِجْرَةَ تَهْدِمُ مَا كَانَ قَبْلَهَا. Did you not know that hijrah, moving from Mecca and going to Medina, it will erase every single sin that a person has done. وَأَنَّ الْحَجَّ يَهْدِمُ مَا كَانَ قَبْلَهُ. And did you also not know that if you do Hajj, everything before it's also forgiven? So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says 3 things that will erase, wipe out every single sin. Number 1, Islam. Just like a person, he doesn't have Islam, he enters the fold of Islam, clean slate. No sin. Doesn't matter what they did. It could be the worst of sins. It's gone. Number 2, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says the hijrah. This was not very easy. Leaving everything you have behind. Your friends, your family, your wealth, your business, and going empty-handed to an entirely new place, not knowing what lies ahead, that will wipe out every single sin that you ever had. And number 3, we don't have access to the first 2. Alhamdulillah, we have Islam. Those of you who have accepted Islam, everything you did before, it's gone. And those of us who are born in Islam, we don't have this luxury, but alhamdulillah, we were born with this ni'mah. Number 2, we can't do hijrah now. There's no call to go to Medina. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has already made that call. And he also says in another hadith, "La hijrata ba'da al-fath." After the fath of Mecca, that Mecca was conquered by Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam peacefully, there's no more hijrah. So we do not have access to this. But the last one Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, and maybe this is why he mentions all 3 to give us hope to latter generations. He says Hajj will also do the same. Just like you entering Islam, Hajj will make you like the day you were born. Complete. There's no sin on a child. We have no belief that there's an original sin. No child is born with a sin. Complete empty slate. This is what Hajj does for a person. A Hajj mabrur, an accepted Hajj. So this is huge ni'mas and blessings and virtues when we do the Hajj, inshallah. We should all, if we feel like we have sins, and we should feel like this, and we feel guilty, one way of expiating that, one way of covering all of that is do Hajj. If we have the capability, we need to start thinking how we're going to go for Hajj. In another narration, Abu Hurairah says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-Hujjaj wal-Ummaru wafdullah." Those who go for Hajj or Umrah, they are the guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're visiting the house of Allah. Now, you don't have to live inside the house for it to be your house. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's house. And you go there and you're visiting the house of Allah. You're a pilgrim. You're a guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is the benefit of being the guest of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? In da'awhu ajabahum. If they make any dua at that time, Allah will answer them. They're the guest of Allah. He's not going to return them empty-handed. You came to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's house. وَإِنِ اسْتَغْفَرُوهُ غَفَرَ لَهُمْ. If they seek forgiveness, they're forgiven, because they're the guests of Allah. In another narration, Aisha radiallahu anha, she states that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, مَا مِنْ يَوْمٍ أَكْثَرْ مِنْ أَنْ يَعْتِقَ اللَّهُ فِي عَبْدًا مِنَ النَّارِ مِنْ يَوْمِ عَرَفَةٍ وَإِنَّهُ لَيَدْنُو ثُمَّ يُبَاهِي بِهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ فَيَقُولُ مَاذَا أَرَادَ هَؤُلَاءِ. Aisha radiallahu anha says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, there is no day in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets free more people from the fire of Jahannam than the day of Arafah. When is the day of Arafah? It's the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. This is Dhul Qa'dah, next month is Dhul Hijjah. On the 9th, Aisha says she heard from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that there's no day in which Allah sets free people from the fire of Jahannam. What does this mean? Maybe it's written on our foreheads that we are meant to go to the fire of Jahannam. On that day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets a whole bunch of these people free who was written for them they're going to Jahannam because of their bad actions. They turn towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now it changes into them being a Jannati now. This happens the most on Yawm Arafah. And then she says, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, on that day Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy enshrouds everyone. And He boasts to the angels. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells the angels, I'm very proud of these people. They are worshipping me on Yawm Arafah. What do they want? And so on Yawm Arafah, for those who have already went for Hajj and those who don't know about it, Yawm Arafah is the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. On that day, pretty much the whole day you're just making dua, standing in the sun, just making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That dua is, according to those people who have gone, unlike any other dua you've ever made in your whole life. It's life-changing. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on that day, it's not like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being, He's not giving on that day. He's giving as much as He wants to give. He's giving more than normal. He's asking, what do they want? And people are asking more than normal as well. So this also applies to us. Right? We're not going to be there perhaps on Yawm Arafah, standing there and making dua, but we can also be among those who are forgiven. If we do some good a'mal, it's also recommended to fast on that day. In another narration, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, "Man ata hadha al-bayt, falam yarfuth wa lam yafsuq, raja'a kama waladathu ummuh." Narrated in Bukhari and Muslim. Abu Hurairah, he says, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, anyone who comes to this house, the Kaaba Sharifah, and they do the Hajj, and they do not sin, and they do not speak incorrect things, they don't speak immodestly, they will go back home like the day their mothers gave birth to them. The day your mothers gave birth to you, you had no sin, nothing wrong. Allah was happy with you. Allah was merciful to you. Allah loves the children who have iman, the children of the Muslimin. He says like that, that's how you're going to be. You're going to go back home, your slate is clean, all your sins forgiven. Regarding the nisa, the ladies, the women, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Aisha, she narrates that she asked Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ya Rasulullah, nara al-jihad afdalul amal, afala nujahid. So in the Quran, in the Hadith, there's exhortation for the believers to strive in the path of Allah. So Aisha radiallahu anha says that I see so many fada'il and virtues of jihad, of striving for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. Shouldn't we women also do it? Because you're not allowing us to go, but there's so much virtue, I feel like we should engage in something like this. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, La, lakinna afdalul jihad hajjun mabrur. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, you don't have to come out with us when we go to battle. Your jihad is hajj mabrur. For women, when they do hajj, and an accepted hajj, it's like a man who went for jihad. In another narration, Aisha says, I asked Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam regarding the jihad of women. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Na'am, alayhinna jihad, la qitala fihi. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, yes, women have to do jihad, but not the type of jihad that you have in mind. There's no qital, there's no fighting in this type of jihad. There's only fighting the nafs. He says, al-hajj wal-umrah. Hajj and umrah is your jihad. Right, so when we think of jihad, we think of a battle. That's not necessarily the only meaning of jihad. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says here, hajj and umrah is also jihad. You read in the Quran, the ayat of jihad, the reward that you get, Hajj and Umrah will give you that. In another narration, a person came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Ya Rasulullah, inni jaban wa inni da'if. Oh Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I find myself very weak and I'm scared to go out with you. You know, when you go and you battle and you know, people are coming to fight against Islam, you're defending, or you're going to into the battle. I'm too scared to do any of those things. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Halumma ila jihadin la shawkata fi al-hajj. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, then do the hajj in which there's no difficulty. Do the hajj. This is your jihad. Now, what is a hajj mabrur? This is what we want. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the hadith, he says you'll get forgiveness not when you just do any kind of hajj. It has to be what he calls hajj mabrur, a pious and accepted hajj. What is that? So some scholars say there's three opinions in this regard. They say the hajj that is maqbul, the accepted hajj. That's why we say an accepted hajj. Okay, we understand accepted hajj, but what does that mean? So some have defined it as الَّذِي لَا يُخَالِطُهُ شَيْءٌ مِنَ الْإِثْمِ. If a person does a hajj and they manage to avoid all kinds of sin, like on purpose we're talking about, by mistake, inshallah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive. But purposeful sinning, you don't do any of that. You don't engage in purposeful sinning. You don't engage in bad character, foul speech. This is a hajj mabrur. You've done the entire hajj. You've done every action correctly, in the correct prescribed manner. If you do this kind of hajj, everything is forgiven. And then others say the sign of a hajj mabrur, الذي تظهر ثمرته على صاحبه بأن يكون حاله بعده خيرا من حاله قبله. Hajj mabrur is when a person, when they come back from hajj, you can see a difference in their life. That's how you know this person had a hajj mabrur. Right? They come back from hajj, their life changes. The inward life we're talking about. It's not that you just now you put on a topi, a hat, a qalansua, you start wearing a jubba now, you grow your beard. That is not a sign of hajj mabrur. The inward heart changes. There's inclination towards Islam. There's inclination towards pleasing Allah. This is a sign that Allah has accepted our hajj. So we should all attempt for the hajj, go for the hajj, and try our best to have these. A hajj in which we have to first, number one, learn the rulings of hajj. It's, you know, unfortunate. We had one teacher, he would make a little joke. He would say that don't go to hajj and look at what other people are doing, because most people don't know what they're doing for hajj. And he gave us an example. When you do istilam of the hajar aswad, istilam meaning you starting your tawaf, you do kind of like how you do takbir, and then you make a motion that you're kissing the hajar aswad. If you can't get to it, usually you won't be able to get to it because of the crowd. He says, look at the people when they do istilam, and it's preferred that every time you make a round around the Kaaba, there's 7 rounds in one tawaf, you do another istilam when you come across the hajar aswad. This is the black stone. He says some people will go there and they'll just wave on the side. Some people will go and they'll wave like this at the hajar aswad. Some people will go like this at the hajar aswad. So this is incorrect. So if you're looking at someone else and they're doing a thumbs up at the hajar aswad and you do the thumbs up, this is not, your hajj is very important. You've saved up your money. This is like, for some people, once in a lifetime. You want to go there without learning about hajj. And it's not difficult, inshallah. We have scholars, we have people, we can ask them. We have groups that are teaching about hajj. You even have videos online. You can go online and look at people. They have a guided hajj tour. So we can learn how to do the hajj. So if we're interested in hajj, and we did not get the capability of going this year, at least we can start learning about it. The ins and outs. Learn about the different sites to see as well when you go there. You know, going to see the different maqbaras, the graves of the Sahaba, etc. Seeing what happened, where was Uhud, where did all of this take place. Learn about all of these things. That might show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we really want to go for hajj. He may give us the tawfiq, inshallah. That's one thing we have to do. Another thing is start making preparations right now. There's 2 kinds of preparations. One is a spiritual preparation, and the other is the actual, whether financial or getting in contact with people. So that obviously we need to start making prep for. If we did not have the capability of going this year, sometimes it's out of your hand. And I know many of you tried to go this year, you were incapable of doing that. If you made an effort and you were not selected to go, inshallah, you have an excuse. If you happen to pass away in this year, you can tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that I made an all-out effort, I was not selected. Inshallah, that would be an excuse. But if we make no excuse for going for Hajj, if we make no effort for going for Hajj, then we have no excuse before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the spiritual prep is, are we performing our tahajjud? First of all, are we performing 5 times salah? 5 times salah. With that, the sunnahs. With that, let's say fasting, Mondays, Thursdays. Also the 13th, 14th, 15th of every lunar month. Then add on to that some tahajjud. Wake up a little bit before Fajr. Make a dua. And every time you raise your hands for dua, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you tawfiq for Hajj. This should be on our dua list. And also, we should have a dua list. Many of us are very arbitrary in our duas. It should have a list of priorities for our friends, family, teachers, etc. And then certain things that we really need. If we're in debt, get out of that. Also halal income, and then Hajj as well. Now, why do we have to do all of this? There's some warnings also. It's not just virtues. Of course, Hajj will wipe out every sin. But in one narration narrated by Ali radiallahu anhu, he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Man malaka zadan wa rahila tuballighuhu ila baytillahi al-haram, falam yahujj, fala alayhi an yamuta yahudiyan aw nasraniyan. وذلك أن الله يقول ولله على الناس حج البيت من استطاع إليه السبيل." Narrated by Imam Tirmidhi, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported to have said, those who have the capability of going for Hajj, meaning you have enough wealth, and in our times you have a visa, you have the capability. If you have all of that, you have the opportunity. When will you know if you have the opportunity or not? You tried. You can't just say, I don't know if I'm going to get a visa or not. You have to actually try and have the capability of going. Then if you're rejected, then it's okay. But if not, and you can get to the house of Allah and do the Hajj, if they still don't do it, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, I don't mind if this person dies as a Jew or a Christian. They don't have anything to do with this deen. They have no portion of this deen. They had the capability of doing Hajj. They didn't do so. I don't care if he dies as a Christian or a Jew. He's not of me. Meaning we have the capability of going and we're not trying. Make the attempt, inshallah. Make the plan. If not this coming year, the next year after that. If not, then the next year after that. Make an intention so at least you can say something to Allah. Most of us are just sitting there, yeah, one day. Not one day. Say, okay, I'm planning, I'm going to have enough money this time. I'm going to make an effort if 2 years from now. At least you have some kind of excuse before Allah. In another narration, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported to have said, "Man lam tahbishu hajatun zahira aw maradun habis aw sultanun ja'ir walam yahujja falyamut in sha'a yahudiyan wa in sha'a nasraniyan." These are the excuses Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that are valid. He says if a person is not, they don't have a physical disability, so that they're healthy, or a person is not extremely ill, so they don't have a physical disability, nor are they actually ill, nor is there some kind of evil tyrant stopping them. If still they have no kind of barrier and they don't do Hajj, then I don't care how they die. They can die a Christian or a Jew. They don't have any portion of my deen. So this is really scary for us as well. We need to at least make an intention. Inshallah, we can do that much. We should leave here today, at least all of us, make an intention when I'm going to do Hajj. Reflect. Think, okay, if not next year, 10 years from now, at least pinpoint when that is. And so we have an excuse before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, we might fall into this. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our shortcomings, allow us to benefit from the era of Hajj as well, the time period, the season of Hajj. And for those who are trying to actually go, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept them. Some people are just pending right now. May Allah ta'ala give them the tawfiq to go for Hajj and fulfill this duty. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to follow in suit. وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى على خير خلق محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Few announcements. Alhamdulillah, we have many programs coming up at the start of the month. not this Saturday, but the upcoming Saturday, we have our monthly family event. The RSVP form is available. So if you want, walk next to the what do you call it? The board, the information board over there behind the glass. You can just scan the QR code and fill out the form. We just need a number for how many people are attending to prepare the food properly. And this is just